Well, I think the thing about silver is that you can add in that it is a major beneficiary of this move away from fossil fuels. I mean, if you just look at the price of other similar
Right.
things like uranium, like lithium, I mean, the prices have just shot up in 2021. This is going to be the year for silver on that basis. And of course, on top of that, you've got monetary demand building as the currencies find that their purchasing power declines. If you look at it in the context of history, I think what you were saying was that Michael Oliver before me was saying that, in the longer term, it's actually been a reasonable year.
Yes.
And I think I would echo that because I would regard it as a period of consolidation. And I don't necessarily recommend people follow charts closely, but it's generally a rule that when you get an extensive consolidation period, the move out of it tends to be a lot stronger as a result. So I think to look at the performance and say, well, that's terribly disappointing, I think is just sort of being rather selective in terms of the overall view. The second thing I would say is that markets are well and truly broken. I mean, you pointed out that we've got very high negative yields on US treasuries. And I think that as far as the markets were concerned, until very recently, people were thinking that, okay, inflation is a bit more sticky than we first thought. And it's, the Fed obviously made a bit of a mistake saying it was transient. But, once the logistics thing is sorted out, it'll all return to normal and we'll be back to sort of drifting back down towards 2% target and so on. Now, that is completely wrong. It is a Keynesian, a very distorted Keynesian view. And one of the things that's most frustrating for an economist such as me is watching the Keynesian narrative just dominate everything. It's patently wrong, and it's led to markets being broken in effect. Now, the reason this is so important is I think in the coming months, maybe even the coming weeks, it will become more apparent to the investment community, the Keynesian investment community, that this idea of inflation actually is going to get worse. And the reason it's going to get worse is basically because of all the money creation that's happened over the last 2 years in particular, and since the great financial crisis as well. I mean, if you look at what's happened to M2 money supply, I mean, that's been growing at an enormous rate. I mean, we're looking at annualized rates for nearly 2 years of just under 50%.
Incredible.
That is absolutely incredible. Now, a lot of people have made tentative comparisons between the current situation and the inflationary times of the 1970s. Well, I looked back to see what sort of monetary growth we had in the 1970s. And at the very, very worst, in the middle of the 1970s, money supply grew by 13.4% in 1 year.
Oh, jeez.
Now, I mean, so there is absolutely no way that we're going to see an easing of the rise in prices because of the enormous amount of stimulus which has been pushed in, not just by the American government, but by every other major government as well. And in the American case, of course, you've had these stimmy checks which are put into everybody's bank accounts, and that's had a pretty immediate effect on the demand side. Without really the production being there to meet it, because half the production has been shut down either because of COVID or because of logistical problems and all the rest of it. So prices have started rising. I think the last CPI figure I saw was 6.2 or 6.8%.
6.8, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, I mean but that's irrelevant. I mean, I really do think that in the coming months, you're going to see this well over 10% because of these monetary factors which are driving the whole thing. And I think this is the thing that, our Keynesian friends just do not understand. The other thing that's interesting about the 1970s is that when we went into the 1970s, everybody was Keynesian. I mean, they really were. And then as it sort of transpired that things were going wrong, suddenly you found that there were people like Milton Friedman on the television. People were beginning to listen to the monetarists. So And I suspect we're going to have the same thing happening here. When things don't perform as the Keynesians expect, then I think you'll find that people will turn to other sources of information and question the whole Keynesian narrative and think, well, perhaps there's something behind monetarism, after all. No, I'm not a monetarist because it is not as simple as that. And I think there's plenty of evidence to back that view.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race, you're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Alasdair, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I intend, how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Alasdair.